So one of the important things, brothers and sisters, which we as a body have come to realize and know, is that the Messiah, he taught his disciples, and he taught his disciples through the demonstration of what he said, what he did, and he commanded his disciples to go and do the same. And in commanding his disciples to go and do the same, what they did was follow him in this way of righteousness. Now, we know very little about Messiah's life prior to his baptism. We know that when he was 12, he went up to Pentecost. We know when he was a child, the Magi came to see him. We know he spent some time in Egypt. And we know the circumstances around his birth. But from the time John began preparing the way for the Lord, that's when we see Messiah Yeshua coming down from the Galilee to begin fulfilling his greater purpose in life. So in fulfilling his greater purpose in life, he never went back to how he was before. What we know about Yeshua before was that he was a carpenter. However, when he got baptized, he was retired from carpentry. So Father retired him from carpentry in order for him to fulfill his commission as the Lamb of God who takes away the sins of the world. And so one of the questions we have asked is, how did Messiah Yeshua, therefore, retire at the tender age of roughly around 30 and then take on responsibility of not just 12 apostles, but those who would follow him and the 12 apostles, not just up until his crucifixion, but past his resurrection, until in their own lives the gospel of the kingdom was preached to the ends of the earth, or the ends of the earth that they knew. And so what we have here is a principle that Messiah begins to teach his disciples, which I'm now going to share with you. So coming from above, Yeshua shares his unique insight with his disciples, being a first-hand witness of the kingdom of Jehovah and how to fulfill the obligations of its citizenry, so that when he ascends, those who believe in him will continue to publish the good news of the kingdom he descended from. Knowing that it's impossible for the natural-minded man to perceive spiritual things, Yeshua uses parables as a means to transmit spiritual truths, in the view that when he ascends, his disciples will be able to perceive the kingdom of Jehovah through their experience of life on earth, because they share a common creator. As I've mentioned before, the heaven and the earth were both created and made and founded, established by our same Father in heaven. And so when Yeshua is teaching his disciples through parables, he is doing so because that which is physical shares the same thumbprint, fingerprint of creation as that which is in heaven. So he can teach the gospel of the kingdom, he can teach the good news of the kingdom by demonstrating and showing them things which they are familiar with on earth. They share a common creator. Now in Luke chapter 16 verse 1, he's teaching this to his disciples. And he said also unto his disciples, there was a certain rich man, which had a steward, and the same was accused unto him that he had wasted his goods. So the first thing we need to appreciate is he's talking to his disciples. He's not talking to scribes. He's not talking to Pharisees, Sadducees. He's talking to his disciples. And he called him and said unto him, how is it that I hear this of thee? Give an account of thy stewardship. For thou mayest no longer be steward. Then the steward said within himself, what shall I do? For my Lord taketh away me the stewardship. I cannot dig to beg. I am ashamed. I am resolved what to do, that when I am put out of the stewardship, they may receive me into their houses. Now, it's been a challenge for me to understand what is going on here. But when you appreciate what is going on here, you can begin to see why the rich ruler would call this individual wise for doing what he is about to do. This steward, someone who has been given control of the ruler's resources, has not been doing a good job. He's ultimately going to be made redundant. And what the steward says is he can't dig. He's not in a position where he can go about and do some manual labor. This is the perfect role for him, though he is not been doing it well, or is being accused of not doing it well. And so he is ashamed. He's got too much pride to beg. So this is what he's going to do. I know what to do. This is what he's saying. I know what to do. And the reason why he's about to do what he's going to do is so that when he is put out of this stewardship, he may be received in the houses of the people. Yeshua is teaching his disciples parables so they can discern spiritual truths through their natural counterparts, in order that his disciples will be prepared to continue the transmission of the gospel of the kingdom once he ascends. The parable of the unjust steward teaches his disciples kingdom wisdom, contrary to that of our natural inclinations. The unjust steward recognizes that if he's a blessing and open his hands unto others, when he becomes destitute, they'll likewise do the same. Yeshua desires wisdom to become a lifestyle principle for his disciples. So in other words, the parable of this unjust steward is being transmitted unto his disciples ultimately to say, you need social currency. There are things you need to do today that's going to position you well when it's your turn to fall upon hard times. And just like this unjust steward who knew that hard times was coming, he was considered wise because of his shrewdness and perceptiveness of being a blessing unto people, so that he himself down the road, perceiving what was coming, could be blessed. Luke 16 verse 15 of verse 5. So he called every one of his Lord's debtors unto him, and said unto the first, how much owest thou unto my Lord? And he said, 100 measures of oil. And he said unto him, take thy bill, and sit down quickly and write 50. The steward, therefore, is relieving these individuals of debt. He's cutting what they owe in half. And the ultimate reason why he's cutting what they owe in half is so that when he is put out of the stewardship, they can receive him into their houses. When he becomes homeless, he will have a place to stay, because he is relieving them of the full measure of weight of their burdens. Then said he to another, and how much owest thou? And he said, 100 measures of wheat. And he said unto him, take thy bill and write 80. And the Lord commended the unjust steward, because he had done wisely. For the children of this world are in their generation wiser than the children of light. And I say unto you, make to yourselves friends of the mammon of unrighteousness, that when ye fail, they may receive you into everlasting habitations. Messiah is teaching his disciples, what to do with the resources that has been committed into their hands. We have to appreciate when we are disciples of Yeshua, children of the Most High God, that what he has put into your pocket, into your wallet, into your purse, still belongs to him. What he has brought into your home belongs to him. What he has blessed you in your garden belongs to him. How he has blessed you in your workplace is because of him. In your community is because of him. We therefore are instructed to acknowledge him in all of our ways. And if we honor him and acknowledge him, then the things that we desire will continually come to pass, because we are giving thanks for that which we have and that which we are given. And so Messiah teaches his disciples, this unjust steward, though he was unjust, he was exercising a level of wisdom which the children of light need to exercise. Storing up social currency, so that when you fail, because you have been a blessing unto others, they will be a blessing unto you. In my experience, the messages that seem to get the most backlash the very most people coming over and expressing their displeasure are the messages where you begin to teach people that Father, when he said through the psalmist, the earth is Jehovah's, the fullness thereof, the world and they that dwell therein, includes the resources that he has blessed you in his world. This for many, for some reason, is a grievance to hear, to the degree when you repeat the words of the Most High, the commandments, statutes and judgments of the Most High, though they themselves don't adhere to it, they want to discourage anyone else from adhering to it also. But Messiah is teaching his disciples, what Father has blessed you in your pocket, you're going to need to give an account for. You're going to need to give an account for, and the very best thing you can do with that which the Father has blessed you in your pocket is do works of righteousness. Because in doing works of righteousness, not only, brothers and sisters, in the times when you will fail, You will be received into habitation. The Father who is scanning, going throughout the earth, looking to and fro, examining the hearts of men, will continue to pour out a blessing unto you because you've been faithful with the little. He'll make you ruler over much. In verse 8 again, and the Lord commended the unjust steward because he had done wisely. For the children of this world are in their generation wiser than the children of light. And I say unto you, make to yourselves friends of the mammon of unrighteousness, that when ye shall fail, they shall receive you into everlasting habitation. So the children of this world are shrewd, strategic and perceptive, advancing their agenda with greater wisdom than that of those of the kingdom of heaven. The whole system of this world is structured to profit those who spend their lives trying to lift themselves up above others while standing on people's backs below them. Now, Messiah is not teaching his disciples, I want you to be unjust like the unjust steward. But what he is saying is this principle, this parable contains the kind of perceptiveness that you're going to need to demonstrate now, so that when the time comes for you to enter into hardship, you've already invested your social currency to the degree that you will be received into everlasting habitation. Yeshua desires that his disciples recognize that they too can be perceptive, strategic, and shrewd in order to invoke favor unto themselves, not through theft, covetousness, or deception, but by being a blessing, giving that which has been committed unto them to others, using worldly wealth to make friends, so that when they become destitute, they themselves will be received. And what Yeshua is teaching is part of this model we see the ecclesia establish once Yeshua ascends. We see it in Acts chapter 2, but I wanted to read a passage from Acts chapter 4, verse 32. And the multitude of them that believed were of one heart and of one soul. Neither said any of them that aught of the things which he possessed was his own, but they had all things in common. And with great power gave the apostles witness of the resurrection of the Lord Yeshua, and great grace was upon them all. Neither was there any among them that lacked, for as many as were possessors of lands or houses sold them, and brought the prices of the things that were sold, and laid them down at the apostles' feet. And distribution was made unto every man according as he had need. Now, Yeshua's disciples, we know that Peter, James, and John had a fishing business. We also know that Matthew was a publican. What Yeshua's other disciples and apostles were is unfamiliar to us. But we know that they forsook all to follow him. Now, in following him, they didn't just sit there and hear what he said and saw what he did. They also replicated him. And so Messiah Yeshua was healing. His disciples were healing. Messiah Yeshua raised the dead. His disciples were commanded to raise the dead. His disciples baptized people in Yeshua's name. His disciples were part of this process where Yeshua fed thousands of people. Yeshua's disciples were doing the works that their master did prior to him ascending and after he ascended. And so those who came from Galilee left all and established an assembly in Jerusalem, and from there spread the gospel of the kingdom unto the nations. Didn't lack places to lay their head, from what we read in the book of Acts. Didn't lack food to eat. Didn't lack a means to provide for themselves and for the people who would join unto them, because they themselves, prior to Acts chapter 4, had done the very same thing. Forsaken all to follow Messiah Yeshua. The kind of wisdom that Yeshua is teaching through the parable of the unjust steward, the disciples of Yeshua were exercising and practicing while their master was alive, or during the time of his ministry, and after his ascension. Through parables like the unjust steward and teachings for the necessity to forsake all to follow Messiah, Yeshua sowed seeds of an evangelistic community which sprouts once he's ascended. The disciples of Yeshua forsook all. They forsook their lives in Galilee, their homes, businesses, fathers, mothers, and brethren, to preach in Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and unto the uttermost parts of the world. Prior to this, they healed, delivered, and baptized myriads. They therefore taught and replicated for themselves the wisdom of being a blessing unto others, and in so doing, their needs were habitually met by the Father through the people who served him. Yeshua is teaching his disciples something that they practiced. What Father commits into your hands, share with others. What he gives you, don't consider your own, share with others. We see in Acts chapter 3, Peter acknowledging, I don't have silver and gold, but what I have I'm going to give to you. In the name of Yeshua Messiah, get up and walk. As freely as they were given, they were giving. And as a consequence, when the disciples of Yeshua would go into such and such a place, they would have a place to stay. They would have brothers and sisters who would meet and match their needs because they were meeting and matching the needs of other people. So when new people come in who don't have, because of this cyclical nature of blessing and blessing other people to be a blessing so you can be blessed, no one lacked. In Luke chapter 16 verse 10, he that is faithful in that which is least is faithful also in much. And he that is unjust in the least is unjust also in much. If therefore ye have been faithful in the unrighteous mammon, if therefore ye have not been faithful in the unrighteous mammon, who will commit to your trust the true riches? And if ye have not been faithful in that which is another man's, who shall give you that which is your own? No servant can serve two masters. For either he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will hold to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and mammon. Yeshua follows his parable with regards to the unjust steward and his actions, though he was unjust, being a demonstration of wisdom that the children of light do not exercise as a means to determine who you're serving. See, in the wisdom that the unjust steward demonstrated, if we transition that to the children of light, who are now being instructed to use the unrighteous mammon to be a blessing unto other peoples, because we realize that it is better to give than to receive, and that if we give, it will come back to us in good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over, shall men give into our bosom. If we follow that principle, then it's an indication that we are not serving the mammon in our pocket. We're not living our lives in service for mammon. What we're actually doing is living our lives in service of the Most High. You're using the unrighteous mammon to serve the Most High, as opposed to protecting and serving and guarding the unrighteous mammon, and the unrighteous mammon becoming an idol. Messiah said to his disciples, no servant can serve two masters. If you're a servant of the Most High, if you're a servant of the Lord, then what did the servants of the Lord do? The most crucial of the things that they did is they had fellowship one with another. They had community one with another. They shared what they had one with another. And as so, when there was lack in the midst of the brethren, the lack was met. When there was need in the midst of brethren, needs were met. And this is how we have to be careful, because it tells us in Revelation, the beast, which is a kingdom, and the beast, which is the eighth one at least, speaks as a dragon with horns as a lamb, will both be worshipped. We have to be careful that we don't allow the kingdoms of this world to take the place of the Most High in our lives. When you have need, who do you turn to? Well, for some, the first port of call, if you have need, is to head on over to the benefit office. To head on over to make sure you can get the credits, the benefits, the allowances from the state. But when you get the benefits, the credits, and the allowances from the state, you know that you are going to be subservient to the state when they invite you in to show us your papers. You have an appointment with us. We want to see your bank account. We want to see your savings. We want to know what you're doing with the money. We want to know such and such and such and such and such and such thing. And if they're giving you the money, they have a right to ask those things from you. That's a qualification of you being able to receive. So now you go where they want you to go at the designated time, otherwise you get shut off. You get shut down. Messiah is teaching his disciples that this is what you do so that when you fall upon hard times, instead of having to turn to the state, to the government, to the kingdoms of this world, you can turn to community. You can turn to your brothers. You can turn to your sisters. Because you've been holding them up. When it's your turn to be held up, they'll have a means to do it. And the state turns into God when it separates and divides people one from another and takes the place of the kingdom of Jehovah in the lives of the children of the kingdom. The mindset of the kingdom of this world stops the transmission of the kingdom and replaces it with a transmission that makes you dependent on them. And when that transmission has been interrupted and displaced with another, who are you serving? Because in the kingdoms of this world, you are trained and conditioned to seek after a life where you don't have an abundance. You have just enough. Just enough for yourself. Just enough month by month for yourself. They take your cut and you take the rest after their cut is taken. Each and every man for himself. And when you fall on hard times, you go to the government. They will keep you in eternal habitation. Doesn't mind what the habitation is like. Doesn't mind how low they make you feel because you have to jump through the kind of hoops you have to jump through. But Yeshua is saying, if ye have been faithful in that which is another man's, who shall give, if you've not been faithful in that which is another man's, who shall give you that which is yours? So the Father, therefore, he has some true riches. He has some true abundance. He has some true prosperity. He has some true valuable stuff which he desires to give to his children, the disciples of Yeshua. But if you are unfaithful with the unrighteous mammon, how are you going to receive the true riches? How are you going to receive that which is yours if you ain't being faithful with the little that he is giving you in the first place? And so, Messiah is telling his disciples, you can't serve two masters. If that which is in your pocket you're unwilling to let go of, then that's what you trust in. If you trust in that which is in your pocket, do you have space to also trust in the Most High? That he can give you more of that which is in your pocket. Father desires, Yeshua desires for his disciples to know that what you do with the resources Father commits into your hands determines who you serve. It's kingdom wisdom to use the resources Father has committed into your hands to be a blessing, to further advance the transmission of his manifesto in the earth. In doing so, you can live in expectation of favor, all the while qualifying for the true riches to be loosed unto you. However, if you're unfaithful with the little, you'll not only receive little, but you'll disqualify yourselves from true riches, as it won't be Jehovah you're serving, but Mammon. It's important, brothers and sisters. It's so important that we appreciate the distinction between the two kingdoms. See, in Father's kingdom, if you're faithful with what he is committed unto you, if you acknowledge him with that which he is given unto you, and therefore honor him with that which he is given, your barns will be filled with plenty and your presses will burst with new wine. Father didn't design his creation with a lack mindset. He designed his creation with the mindset of abundance, multiplication. Man comes along, unrighteous, unjust man, through the leading of the kingdom of darkness, and designs a kingdom whereby the overwhelming of majority of people have just enough, while those who are at the head of the infrastructure of oppression have an exceeding abundance. The trouble is, because the overwhelming majority of people are carnal, they trust in the unrighteous mammon more than they trust in the Most High. So when the Most High tells you to give offerings, to tithe, to give first fruits, to give alms, people have a tendency to want to argue and debate and pull those kind of messages down and encourage people online and in the fellowship not to do those things, while at the same time those same people are struggling and destitute in the realm of the unrighteous mammon. So now they're broken, destitute in two kingdoms. In the kingdom of Jehovah, you're operating in disobedience, while in the kingdom of man, because you're not doing that which is written in the kingdom of Jehovah, you're struggling in the realm of the unrighteous mammon. Whereas Yeshua's disciples are being trained and conditioned so that when he ascends, don't put your trust in the unrighteous mammon. Use the unrighteous mammon. Use the unrighteous mammon to be a blessing unto others, because sooner or later, those who you have blessed will turn around and be a blessing unto you. Use your resources to be a blessing unto others, because sooner or later, when you fail, they'll come and be a blessing unto you. It's kingdom wisdom to use your resources, the resources Father has committed into your hands, to be a blessing, to further advance the transmission of his manifesto in the earth. In so doing, you can live in expectation of favor, all the while qualifying for true riches to be loosed unto you. However, if you're unfaithful with the little, you'll not only receive little, but disqualify yourself from the true riches, as it won't be Jehovah you're serving, but mammon. Luke 16 verse 14. And the Pharisees also, who were covetous, heard all these things, and they derided him. Now remember, the beginning of the message, I made it clear and underlined the fact that he's talking to his disciples. The Pharisees are listening to Yeshua talking to his disciples. But we can also come to the same conclusion that some of the Pharisees were his disciples. They were learning from him as well as learning from the Pharisees. But when they're learning from him, because they're learning from a Pharisaic mindset, when they heard him, they derided him. They sneered at him because they were covetous. Now it's amazing to me how there are teachings that gets people's back up, and one of them is tithe and offering. Why would that get people's back up? If you're not tithing and offering, why would it upset you for someone to teach about tithe and offering if you don't believe that you need to do it in the first place? Why would that get your back up? Surely it's enough for you not to believe that you have to do it. So why are you going around following people online, posting memes and pictures, trying to encourage other people to not do that, to give tithes and give offerings? Unless your goal is to shut the ministry down. And I'm reminded how the Pharisees responded to Yeshua teaching his disciples, sneering at him because they themselves were covetous. He was saying to his disciples, this is what you do. You can't serve two masters. This is what you do. There'll be times when you fail. There'll be times when things will get rough. But if you follow kingdom wisdom, you'll be received into eternal habitation. And the reason why you use that which the Father has committed into your hands in this way is because you can't serve two masters. The Pharisees were leaders of the people. They were part of the religious establishment, but they were covetous. They were greedy. They liked that mammon. They trusted in the mammon more than they trusted in the Most High, so that when they heard it, it grieved them in their spirit. That's why they sneered at him. And I have to come to the conclusion that there are many Pharisees today who are hanging around those who are disciples of Yeshua, and when messages go out, they're doing the same. They're sneering, they're deriding, they're murmuring. They're trying to pull people out of the kingdom mindset and pull them into a religious mindset. So when Messiah is teaching his disciples, you can use the unrighteous mammon to do righteous things. These individuals are getting upset at the revelation that you can't serve God and mammon. He said in verse 15, and he said unto them, ye are they which justify yourselves before men, but God knoweth your hearts. For that which is highly esteemed among men is an abomination in the sight of God. The law and the prophets were until John. Since that time the kingdom of God is preached, and every man presseth into it. And it is easier for heaven and earth to pass than one tittle of the law to fail. It's key for us to realize and to appreciate that which is highly esteemed among men is an abomination in the sight of God. The context of the discussion is mammon. What would hold you back from being kingdomly wise with regards to the mammon with regards to that which the Father has committed into your hands is if you highly esteem the mammon more than highly esteeming and trusting in the Most High. If you highly esteem and trust in the Most High, what you will do when you see a need, you will do your best to fulfill that need, believing Jehovah is your reward. Jehovah is your portion. And Jehovah knows the hearts of men, and he will recompense for those who can't recompense for themselves. Jehovah, therefore, considers it an abomination, it abominable to therefore trust and put up upon a pedestal and for people to serve the unrighteous mammon over them putting him up on a pedestal and serving him. And this is why the Pharisees derided him. The Pharisees derided him because when the words came from Yeshua's mouth, they demonstrated their covetousness through their sneering, through their screwing up of their face, through their murmuring, and so on. The Pharisees derided Yeshua because he taught his disciples that in order to be wise, they need to use the unrighteous mammon to be a blessing, to make friends, to advance kingdom community in the earth. Mammon is highly esteemed among men, including the religious establishment. And as a consequence, they sneered at Yeshua when he declared his disciples should be faithful with the little that they have in order for them to qualify for more. What Yeshua preaches, the world despises. And on the contrary, what the world highly esteems is an abomination to God. Now, Father has given me the unction and I've had to overcome and wrestle my flesh and my natural inclination to think a certain way in order for me to trust in him. Where I came from, one could say there was a mindset of lack. I came from a place where I could be comfortable in environments of lack and not even realize there was lack. Because I'm comfortable in that environment. And so there's been times in my life when the Most High and the Spirit of God is pressing on me to break that mindset. And the breaking of that mindset involves, I want you to be a blessing here. I want you to be a blessing here. I want you to give over here. I want you to give there. And in my mind, I'm wrestling with the spirit part of my mind. So the spirit part of my mind is wrestling with the natural part of my mind, because my natural part of my mind don't want to give that much. That's more than what I'm comfortable with giving. while the spirit part of my mind is encouraging me to give such and such to such and such because it is written to sow your treasures in heaven. That if you're faithful with the little, you'll be ruler over much. That you can't serve two masters. And as a consequence, through experience now, when I find myself in those kind of situations, that wrestling that could at times past be paralyzing gets easier every time. And the way it gets easier every time is because I have seen the result of following and complying to his directives. I've seen the fruit of obedience to the degree that if I obey in giving, I'm looking for when it shall be returned. That if I give to someone who is in lack, who is in destitution, who has a need, they may not be able to repay. I'm not looking for them to repay. I don't want any credit from them. I'm looking for the Most High to reward. Because if I get the inclination I should give and I don't, then who am I serving? Who or what do I trust? And to trust in the mammon is an abomination unto the Most High. And if I trust in the mammon all the while performing, then I'm no different from a covetous Pharisee. And what I want to do is spend my life pouring out. Giving of myself. Giving time. Giving energy. Giving work. Praying for people. Discipling people. Studying with people. Counseling people. Baptizing people. Being who I have been called to be. Giving out as much as I can of myself and what Father has given to me freely, in the hope and expectation that Father will provoke those I am giving to give back unto me. So those who get upset when I speak about giving offerings, giving tithes, giving first fruits, I have to question where that's coming from, and then B, have to ask how well you are doing in that particular area. Because is it possible for you to have the kind of abundance where your cup is overflowing without you being obedient? And have you tried the Most High being obedient to his directives? And if you haven't, then maybe that's the reason why you're holding on to and are deriding those who have. So mammon is highly esteemed among men, including the religious establishment, and as a consequence they sneered at Yeshua when he declared his disciples should be faithful with the little they have in order for them to qualify for more. What Yeshua preaches, the world despises. And on the contrary, what the world highly esteems is an abomination to God. And he carries on. Now this seems to come out of nowhere with regards to the message that Yeshua is teaching his disciples, but it fits right in. Whoso putteth away his wife and marrieth another committeth adultery, and whosoever marrieth her that is put away from her husband committeth adultery. What men highly esteem is an abomination unto the Most High. Yeshua is saying this to the religious establishment. The religious establishment not only covets mammon, but they covet flesh. They coveted, as they do to this day, the fulfilling of the lusts of their flesh. And so, instead of enduring hardships pertaining to their marriage, they would put this one away and receive another. When this one gets mature and old in age, when this one goes through the natural cycle of women, they put this one away and receive another. And like with anything, scour through the prophets to try and find a justifiable reason why it's okay to put away, when Yeshua declares it wasn't so in the beginning. Matthew 19 verse 8, he saith unto them, Moses, because of the hardness of your heart suffered you to put away your wives, but from the beginning it was not so. The people's hearts were hard back then, as the people's hearts are hard today. The disciples of Yeshua, those hanging around the disciples of Yeshua, putting away their wives, marrying another, and then turning to Moses for their justification. Turning to passages in Nehemiah, in Ezra for their justification. Skipping over what Yeshua said. Dancing around what Yeshua said. Hard-hearted people. Hard-hearted people. Yeshua says, the law and the prophets were until John. Since that time, the kingdom of God is preached, and every man presseth into it. It is easier for heaven and earth to pass than one tittle of the law to fail. Whosoever putteth away his wife and marrieth another committeth adultery. And whosoever marrieth her that is put away from her husband committeth adultery. Using this qualification, there is adultery in the body of Messiah. Now imagine, or those, I'll rephrase, those who claim to be the body of Messiah, those who claim to be Israel, which is why When you head up into the Revelation, you have a counterfeit called a whore, and the authentic called the bride. A counterfeit called a harlot, who's committed whoredom, who's drunk on the blood of the saints, of the martyrs, of the prophets, and the authentic, who has prepared herself, dressed in white, which is the righteousness of the saints. There are many who may know the word, teach the word, perform the word, while at the same time highly esteeming things which are an abomination unto the Most High. In Malachi 2:14. Yet ye say, wherefore? Because Jehovah hath been witness between thee and the wife of thy youth, against whom thou hast dealt treacherously. Yet is she not thy companion, and the wife of thy covenant? And did not he make one? Yet had he the residue of the Spirit, and whereof for one, that he might seek a goodly seed, a godly seed. Therefore take heed to your spirit, and let none deal treacherously against the wife of thy youth. For Jehovah, the God of Israel, saith that he hateth putting away. For Jehovah, the God of Israel, saith, he hateth putting away. For one covereth violence with his garment, saith Jehovah of hosts. Therefore take heed to your spirit, that ye deal not treacherously. You have wearied Jehovah with your words. Yet ye say, wherein have we wearied him? When ye say, every one that doeth evil is good in the sight of Jehovah, and he delighteth in them. Or, where is the God of judgment? In verse 1, behold, I will send my messenger, and he shall prepare the way before me. And Jehovah, whom ye seek, shall suddenly come to his temple, even the messenger of the covenant, whom ye delight in. Behold, he shall come, saith Jehovah of hosts. The context of I will send my messenger is connected with the people who were dealing treacherously by doing things which Jehovah hates, putting away. The people highly esteemed that which Jehovah hated. He hated putting away. The people did the putting away. He also hated the fact that the people trusted in the mammon and were covetous over the mammon rather than doing justly, righteously, and opening their hands wide unto those who had need. And so we, brothers and sisters, in the day and time that we are in, we have to realize that Jehovah is the same. He is the same yesterday as he is today. The same way the Father is able to provide for us or provide for his people yesterday. He is able to meet and match all of their needs, regardless of whether they were in the wilderness, whether he needed to make a pathway in the midst of the sea. We serve that same Elohim today. And Messiah is teaching in this parable a wisdom. The wisdom he's teaching his disciples is, what Father has committed into your hands, be faithful with. If it's inside your hand, if it's inside your pocket, if it's inside your purse, don't for a moment think that it's yours. He is giving it you, not just the 90%. He's giving it all to you. And if you are wise, then what you should do is use it. Use the unrighteous mammon to do righteous things. Use it to make friends. Use it to make friends so that when you fail, when you fall upon hard times, the friends you have made, the good righteous works that you have done in Yeshua's name will come back and hold you up. That's a kingdom wisdom that people outside of the kingdom use to this day. Within networks, people with resources who are in networks recognize it's more beneficial for me if the people within my network are as wealthy as me. So let's trade with one another. Let both of us be prosperous so that if I fail, if I fall, if I come upon hard times, you can share some of what I've been giving you back with me. And with that regard, the people of the kingdoms of this world are wiser than the children of the kingdom of light. And here at the conclusion of our service here today, I want to encourage you to challenge your own natural inclinations. How you've been trained, how you've been taught, so that you as an individual on this journey of transformation is not held back from the level of maturity a child of God will need to have his image and likeness. Otherwise, brothers and sisters, we may be like the Pharisees. Like the Pharisees in the regard that though we can quote and debate scripture with the master, we're covetous. Our hearts are abominable because we highly esteem the things that the world esteems. Amen.